Let's get to politics now. While much of the Republican presidential debate has focused on the four indictments against President Trump, there is one candidate who has noticeably avoided talking about him on the campaign trail, and that's President Biden. The Biden team is making a conscious effort to avoid bringing up President Trump's legal woes. Some Democratic strategists are hailing the strategy as a winner, while others are calling it a risky move that could cost President Biden the 2024 election. Let's dig into this a little bit deeper with civil rights attorney Robert Patillo and also Vince Coglianese, host of the Vince Coglianese Show and editorial director with the Daily Caller. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us on a holiday, no less. Let's address this really gloves-on approach to President Trump. What's the thinking behind the move, and is it working for or against the Biden campaign? Robert, I'll start with you.
I think it's working outstandingly for the Biden campaign. What we saw in 2016 is that President Trump won because he got over $3 billion in free media ad time. Cable news networks would just turn on the Trump conference or the Trump rally and just let it play for 3 hours straight. Biden has decided he wants to highlight his achievements. If you look at the unemployment numbers that came out this weekend, the economic growth numbers that came out, if you look at the trilateral agreement that he signed between Japan, Korea, and the United States to contain China and contain North Korea, if you look at the support he's given to our allies in the Middle East and in Europe, President Biden has one of the most significant first-term achievement gaps between him and any of his competitors that we've seen in American U.S. history. There's a reason that Nikki Haley is running against Kamala Harris. There's a reason that Ron DeSantis is running against Gavin Newsom. There's a reason that Vivek Ramaswamy is running against reality, because nobody wants to compete head-to-head with Joe Biden, and that's why the Biden team is focusing on his achievements and not President Trump's convictions.
Yeah, we know that that language is about to change, according to Biden insiders. Vince, what say you on this? And is President Biden making a mistake by not drawing more attention to President Trump's legal woes?
Well, the reality is that the only chance that Biden has at re-election is to run against Trump, to demonize him. This idea, Robert's a smart guy, but that's practically North Korean to suggest that the Biden economy is a resounding success and that he has something to crow about. You've got over half the country that says they are worse off now than they were under Donald Trump, certainly even just a year ago. Inflation is still out of control. People are still poorer now than they were when the Biden presidency began, because their paychecks can't keep up with their expenses. And you have over $1 trillion in credit card debt in the United States, now a record, and those interest rates are soaring. It is just not a good situation. And Biden is trying to change perception around that question because he has a tremendous number of liabilities right now. And so the reality is the only plan he has and needs to do is to demonize Trump to justify why he would be in office again. And at this moment, he doesn't need to say anything. He's got a Justice Department that's working on his behalf to take down his top political opponent. We are in unprecedented waters right now, where you have multiple indictments, including from the federal government, directed at Donald Trump by politically active Democrats, including many of whom, including on Jack Smith's team, the special counsel, who donated to Joe Biden and previously to Barack Obama.
And I know you say he doesn't, need to do that, but we have heard from Biden insiders that apparently after Labor Day, so after today, that strategy is going to change, the language is going to shift. So I guess starting sometime this week. Robert, are Democrats chomping at the bit for that to happen? I know you say his tactic right now is working outstandingly well, but are some Democrats ready to hear that shift? Because a big reason President Biden won back in 2020 was by running against Trump's record as president.
I think what people want to hear is a contrast on the records. I don't think you can go tit for tat arguing indictment for indictment with Donald Trump. If you look at the inflation numbers that were just brought up, well, the inflation is 1/3 today what it was in 2009. It topped at about 9.3%. We're at 3.2%, below the 4% target that was set out previously. If you talk about economic growth and economic numbers, we haven't seen economic growth like this since the New Deal took place. And so this idea that Joe Biden doesn't have a record to run on and that we're going to compare it to the Trump record, there's a reason that you don't have mainstream Republicans that want to even talk about policy issues with the Democratic Party. President Biden did prescription drug reform this week. Last week, he did student loan reform, setting out a new payment agreement. We've seen bipartisan agreement upon bipartisan agreement, trillions of dollars for infrastructure, trillions of dollars for the environment, omnibus spending bill, the debt ceiling deal, the Stop Asian Hate Crime bill, the Respect for Marriage bill. So Biden has a record, Trump has indictments, and that's where Democrats are going to run on.
Well, I think a lot of people would also say Trump, has a good record too, especially border is top of mind for a lot of voters too this election. Vince, I'll end with you, and we have just a few seconds left. Do you think any of the president's strategy here has to do with his own son's legal issues? Is he trying not to sound like a hypocrite here?
Well, I think that's a critical component, especially given that the Justice Department has clearly tried to move heaven and earth to keep Hunter Biden from any meaningful consequence. They were caught with their hands in the cookie jar because of these IRS whistleblowers who said that this was a corrupt process. And now the Justice Department is scrambling. And so as a result, I think the lawyers of the White House are saying, Joe, keep your mouth shut. Just don't say anything about the Justice Department because you need to establish that it's independent from you.
Okay, Vince Coglianese, Robert Patillo, thank you as always for joining us, and hope you have a good rest of your Labor Day weekend.